Good morning. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Good morning. My name is Petronella Bouvier, and I am a designer of professional learning for the Northeast office of the Alberta Professional Learning Consortium. I retired last year after 33 years of teaching. I was a classroom teacher for a good chunk of years. K to 3 was my area of specialty. A lot of years in kindergarten, grade 2 and grade 1. Then I became an assistant principal. I did that for 4 years here in Lac La Biche at Vera Welsh Elementary School. And then my last 8 years of teaching, I was a consultant for Northern Lights Public Schools. And last year was my first year working with the consortium. And today is my second big Zoom session, and this year is my first year of doing the symposium with my colleagues at APLC. A few things about me is they used to call me the book lady at school, and at 7:30 in the morning when I started really getting into picture books and just seeing the magic to bring to children and that, I'd be at work early and I'd just go to the library. Nobody would be in the building, and I would just sit and read books and just build my knowledge of what there were to offer children and just that love of books. And I guess personally, I've been married. It's our 30th wedding anniversary this summer. My husband and I were married in the Cook Islands 30 years ago, and we have two children who are adults and doing their own thing. And I'm a little bit of a bushwoman. I love to just wander outside in the forest, and we have a huge garden. So pretty soon here, you're going to see me canning and pickling everything in sight. And that's just a little bit about me.
I'm Angela DeBar, and I too have an extensive background in education. I probably retired 4 years ago and have been working now with APLC as a designer of professional learning. Prior to retiring, I was an elementary classroom teacher. I was a teacher librarian, where very similarly to Petronella, enjoying ordering books for our library, finding books that were very engaging for students to get hooked on reading. I took my master's when I was teaching grade 1 because I was determined to find ways for little kids to become readers and writers, determined, because I would have these little ones in my class, and I was always wondering what more can I do to help them. I became a vice principal, and then moved into central office as an AC coordinator, and then eventually director of teaching and learning, and was mostly quite responsible for our beginning teachers in the division, and then eventually moved into more of a curriculum area, where I was the one in charge of any curriculum implementation and supporting administrators in regards to ensuring that teachers were well equipped to teach our Alberta curriculum. And while I was doing that, I also started teaching at our local college here at Northwest Polytechnic. At the time, it was Grand Prairie Grand Prairie Regional College, and I started teaching a course in literacy to our pre-service teachers. And now, as having retired from Grand Prairie Public School Division, I teach half-time at the college, pre-service teachers, 3rd and 4th year. And I am doing this half the time. And this is our second presentation together, Petronella and I, and really enjoying working with her. I've been with DPL, or working as a DPL for 4 years. And I have to honestly say, I wasn't a really big social studies fan when I was in the classroom. But with the new curriculum and really digging in and diving in and looking for resources and looking at ways that we can plan with the social studies, I have really, really come to enjoy it, and also really seeing the connections I always was really interested in cross-curricular teaching, but working with Petronella, we've really been able to see how with this curriculum, how you can really, and she'll show you how you can really connect the dots with the other subject areas. So I'm hoping that you will enjoy this session. Petronella has done a lot of work on collecting resources, and so she will be responsible for most of the slides in this presentation. So I'm going to keep your questions. If you've got questions, please put them in the chat, and I'll make sure I'll try and monitor those. And I think we should get started, Petronella.
Thank you. So today we acknowledge that this gathering is taking place on traditional lands across the province of Alberta, home to many diverse Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit people. Spanning generations, the acknowledgement of the land is a traditional custom of Indigenous peoples and an important part of reconciliation. It gives voice to the authentic history of the land and its original people. Honoring the land in this way acknowledges the story of creation of this country in a way that's been historically missing. As we reflect upon these images of landscapes in Alberta, we recognize the deep connections Indigenous peoples have to the land, and we can also think about our connections as well. My individual call to action is to continue to educate myself about Indigenous ways of knowing and land-based learning to assist me in understanding how the land and the Indigenous people in my life and in my community continues to shape my identity, and giving myself a better understanding of how we can embed reconciliation and teaching about Indigenous ways of life as an integral part of the social studies curriculum. So just a brief recap of what's being offered in the social studies yesterday and today. They started off yesterday just charting the course, exploring the curriculum, and then how to do social studies. Angela and I did the getting started with planning the social studies curriculum. So it was just kind of a basic planning in social studies. What does it mean? We are both very enthusiastic planners, and we firmly believe that teacher autonomy and making plans that work for you and your students are key. So if you're curious about any of that, the templates for all the unit plans and whatnot are there. And I do believe that the recording went out yesterday as well. The next session was an AI servant collaborator, just how to use AI as a planning feedback and finding resources. This morning is where are the resources for the social studies curriculum, and it'll wrap up after our session for classroom assessment and social studies. And I'm really looking forward to that session because there's some real gems in the assessment. So that's just kind of what's been offered, and it's just opened some doors for you in implementing this new curriculum and some resources. So getting start resource materials. It's been a laborious task to find resources, but I really love searching things out and providing students with as many resources as you can at their fingertips, and just providing them with that. So today our agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about critical thinking in social studies, some helpful tips to find resources. We'll go through some general resources. For example, the ATA has some, the Alberta Education, the New Learning website, United Library Services, even the Canadian government has quite a few resources as well, and as does the provincial government. We'll talk a bit about mentor texts and resources, which is a real fun one. Angela's curated an amazing list of mentor texts and resources that way. We'll look at some professional resources. That's just for us as educators to just bolster our understanding of what is teaching social studies and literacy in social studies, and how to, just build our background knowledge. And then we've created a comprehensive spreadsheet of many resources that we'll share with you as well. So when we talk about what is social studies, and we'll go to the New Learn Alberta website, and we can see here that they've changed it. I'm not sure if you're aware, but it has changed. We were building our presentation on Tuesday and just refining a few things, and I went to links and they were broken. And I'm like, what? So go back and they've revamped the whole website, it's very well laid out now. And I think it's kind of an aha moment of that you just can't print off a PDF of the curriculum right now in this day and age and just use that for the whole year, because they do make changes. Sometimes there's wording in the curriculum and they have a spot on the curriculum where they talk about some of the changes to wording and whatnot. So using this as a live document is always very helpful. So if we go into the home page, you can see now that it's a little bit different. We've got browsing the core curriculum. There are some complementary curriculums depending where you teach and what you teach. You may be needing to reference that. And then some of the features of the curriculum. And these progressions are kind of foundational pieces of all the curriculum that are above. And they are kind of the how to get children to dig into things. So we'll look briefly at social studies. And you can see here that we've got the grades here. If you scroll down underneath, it talks a little bit about what social studies is. And it talks about it's the study of history, geography, economics, civics and citizenship, government and politics, and how important it is that students explore important questions, and they are engaging with issues to understand lessons from the past and to become active and well-informed citizen. Talks a little bit about the history. Understanding the past, we can sort of interpret the present. Critical thinking, what are those thinking skills students need? It's encouraging students to question assumptions and ask questions. Students will also develop an understanding of research methods. And that's why I firmly believe that today's session on resources is huge, because it's through examining multiple resources that children do become social scientists and leverage those research methods that we can use with students. And then social studies in our world. So just a brief, what is social studies? And some of the books I've been reading since I've been engaged in understanding disciplinary literacy and how do we read in each subject area and how we know that it's not the same, and how do we have students reading like social scientists, and what are the pieces of that. So I've been engaged in that disciplinary for literacy for a number of years, but looking at this quote from How Do We Teach Elementary Students to Think Like Historians? And I think this one just resonated with me because as a student, I grew up when we had one textbook. And that's what every year we had a textbook that taught us our whole social studies, and then as we moved through, when I was teaching social studies, Nelson or Pearson came out with their series, and I tried to teach from that and just follow the lessons piece by piece by piece, but it was only, again, one source. And I've bolded a couple quotes in here that I think just resonate as students simply trust textbooks because textbooks are presented as the main source of facts. But we need to focus on the realities that textbooks only have one account, which offers one perspective, one interpretation, and one bias. And I think right now, in society, we need to be able to teach kids to think in multiple perspectives and have that diversity. So this is just a quote, and we'll go into this teaching elementary students to think like historians in a little bit. It's just a resource that assists us, especially grades 3 and up, on providing children with those source materials and teaching them how to look at source materials and build their understanding. And then there's another book that I had purchased, and they talk about history as a discipline. It's a way of thinking that encourages students to analyze historical evidence, evaluate it, and then it requires repeated practice with these essential elements. So just a couple quotes. So some tips for finding resources. Just copying and pasting the concepts like the regions of Canada and keywords into a search engine. I did that for quite a few things. I'm using AI. Yesterday's session, I believe I want to be able to watch it. I didn't have a chance, but to assist you in finding references, resources, or picture books. I've used that quite a bit when I was searching for some of the resources in the spreadsheet. You have to vet them and make sure that they're legitimate and whatnot, but at least it's somewhere that if you're stuck, you can use AI. Go to your school library, public library, local museum. Again, like I said, in your I would just go and read books in the library at school and be like, oh, this is really going to fit here. This is going to fit here. We'll look at TrackPack, Alberta Public Libraries. You're able to go to the TrackPack site. You can have those, you can select library books and they will ship them to your closest public library. And I believe you can get up to 6 weeks with those resources at your fingertips. One cautionary tale is you're on the hook if kids take them home and don't bring them back. So you kind of got to guard them. I have a lot of friends, especially friends that teach in smaller schools that don't have big libraries, teacher colleagues that actually use TrackPack all the time. And they'll just search out and we'll go into TrackPack. I'll model a search for you just so you can see it. A simple Google search might be look for Alberta, Canada resources. And then we'll look at some go-to sites. New Learn Alberta has boards. They haven't been built yet, but they will be done in the future. And also always be looking at the Alberta Professional Learning Consortium because they're already always adding resources as well. Okay, so the first place you'll want to start looking for resources is on the Learn Alberta site. And so I've already taken you there once today. But when we're looking here, there's two ways you can find resources is we can look through here on the curriculum site, or we can go to explore resources. My preference currently is to go to the curriculum and to look. And oops, sorry, still trying to navigate my way through this new website. And we can look perhaps at grade 2. And you can see now when we look at the curriculum, it's got the details of the curriculum, the overview of social, what it is. We just kind of reviewed through that, looking at social studies, what is critical thinking, social studies in our world. And now what they've done is they have the OI, the guiding question, and the LOs all on this page. So for this organizing idea, you can scroll through and you can see everything that's here. And if you look at the resources, there aren't many there, but they're coming. So they did have a bunch in the pilot, but I believe they pulled back when they changed the curriculum. I can't speak to it because I'm not with Alberta Ed, but they'll be adding more as time goes on. So this might be your first point of stop and see what they've got. Alternatively, if you're going to the website, you can look here on the Explore resource page. And you can see here that there are resources, resource collections. You can look at grade 2 again. And maybe you're thinking of integrating subject areas and you might do language arts and social studies. And you can see that there's some pieces in here that might work. So they have the Pearson. I'm not logged in at this point, but a lot of the Pearson readers, they are ones that the government they have partnerships with certain like Mathology stuff, the Butterfly Life. So hopefully there will be more things coming up. So there are resources. I do find this is a little bit more difficult to find specific resources, and it's easier for me when I go into the grade level and again looking at that curriculum and seeing
Petronella,
what's
I'm
there.
just going to interrupt you for a second. We have a question and you may have additional information. So the question is, have you heard any reason as to why all the Pearson or Sparklight resource links on the Learn Alberta site give this prompt access to resource not granted? Contact your administrator. Now, I know for myself, if I don't have an actual login, there are resources that I cannot access. And I also have had the experience of where sometimes they don't have it totally available yet. But Petronella, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. I mean, that's my understanding at this point.
And I was looking at some of the resources and I was looking at the social studies books they have and there was no access. I'm just going to go back and check a couple things. Let's go to explore resources. I'm logged in now. So we can see here, I need to go back to grade 2. And let's go to language and social again. Because yesterday I could get into some books, but I couldn't get into other resources. So we can see Flyleaf Publishing. If I'm logged in, this one will work. So some of them were working, some weren't. I'm thinking that maybe they haven't actually renewed all the partnerships with some of these
Yeah,
resources.
yeah.
Because I know
I,
that I was through the language arts lens, I could do some of them, but you do need to log in to see some of
you do.
those. And
Yeah.
then there were some that said something about the students and using a student login, and I think some of them you can actually put into your Google Classroom if you use that as a platform.
Mhm.
So hopefully they're going to have more Pearson stuff coming up. I think they're renewing partnerships.
And I do, and it's really
So
important too that if you don't have a login to, and you can get the login through your school division. So I would really make sure that you have that because that will give you more access to what they do have on there.
and I think too, if you're a newer teacher and you don't have login, we have all those other pieces that we have to um, do the testing in K-3. You need a login anyways to get there, and then an additional login. So hopefully most of you have logged into this website and you'll have access to resources.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Next slide. So Angela, this is your slide. The
Right.
Indigenous culture-based learning in Alberta curriculum.
Exactly. So I have the honor actually to work with Jason Big Charles and with Kim Barker Kay, who I believe we're also giving a session. I think they did yesterday. And one of the things that we had done a few years back, and of course now I haven't worked with them this last year, but I know that they were reviewing because after the draft, there were some changes that were made to the social studies curriculum. But this website gives you a sort of now the caveat is that this website is based on Cree knowledge. And but they still and having worked with some of the with Dene up north, they were very excited to have something that would help them make some of those connections within the social studies curriculum to an Indigenous perspective. So for example, in some places where we are looking at land, when we are looking at, some of the stories that are being shared, those are, now did we link that one, Petronella? I'm wondering.
Yes, we did. I was just
Yeah.
going to say, I probably should have clicked the
Yeah,
link.
no,
Sorry,
that's fine.
guys.
No, that's okay. Right.
So I'll just
So
go here
perfect. Yeah.
so you can see. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll see too that they've got across the top, they've got some really good ways to kind of go in and, I would like some TP teachings to kind of make some connection. I would like to go to stories and legends. And when we're talking about integrating, there are some really excellent creation stories. They've got Jason Big Charles has made some videos where he is a knowledge keeper and he is somebody that can and is telling these these stories on video. So again, you are totally free to use them on your smartboard, have the children listen to a knowledge keeper share the stories that have been passed down from generation to generation. I just find that this resource has been extremely helpful when you are looking for those connections that are articulated in the curriculum to Indigenous ways of being and knowing and connections to some of the terminology and areas in the curriculum that we have to teach that we might not feel comfortable. So they've really, really provided a lot of resources on this website. I would say, please take some time to go in and have a look. And again, not everything is, because I do know that Cree is not the only, band across Alberta. There's Blackfoot, there is, other Indigenous beliefs and tribes. And so it just sort of gives you sort of like a foundation or a base to help students understand a little bit of one perspective of some of the Indigenous ways of knowing. So check it out.
Yeah.
I know when I was working with the Dene up north, they were really excited about it because they were going to take it and modify a few things, but the base was already created for them. And so this was giving them an opportunity then to take it and change it to perhaps some of the Dene language, Dene beliefs. Some of them were very similar. But again, it's a good resource to start with.
And yes, and I know that another colleague of ours that works in Southern Alberta said some of the um, First Nations he works with down there, we're also looking at this as an exemplar, and they are working on building them as well.
Yeah.
So this is just a scroll through, and they will have other suggestions. They will have, these links will be
Yes.
updated. They're just trying to update it with some of that. So
And the
just
nice
one of
thing
the,
too, yeah, the bar across the top where you saw like videos and stuff like that. If you go into like one of the grades, you may have already noticed there where like if we go to grade, yeah, kindergarten, grade 1 or whatever, they will have some of those videos that have already been generated linked into the curriculum that they have on the site there. So, you don't have to go back and forth in many cases especially in regards to the videos that they've already created.
yes. So this is the first resource that we thought is just important. And if you're like me, you see I've got an extensive bookmarks bar. I have it right there. I don't
Yeah.
have enough room on mine. So it's just bookmarked for me to refer to quickly because sometimes I get lost in resources and yeah. So the next is the ATA library, guys, and cheers to your Alberta Teachers Association. They have library guides. So if you're looking here and you're scrolling down, you'll have to scroll to the social studies. They have done some really good work with the new social studies from K to 6. And you can see in here, they have a bunch of different pieces. They've got the general one where they've just got some different links you can leverage. They talk about cultures. There's all kinds of things here. A lot of those are just live links you can go to. Some of the groups. They've got places, some landmarks and whatnot. Pieces about trade. And then of course they've got their teacher knowledge piece. So the very valuable resource. Another one that if it was me, I'd probably bookmark it on my bookmarks bar. And just have that as a handy reference to refer to. I'm all about free stuff and everything that we've curated today, except for the picture books, but there are ways you can find some retellings of the picture books online. And if people are wanting to know how to make even a slideshow without the links, because sometimes you get commercials that are inappropriate or whatnot, is just to upload those. So that's the ATA library guides. Another one for me that was huge when I was teaching was the visual literacy and image collections. And knowing that a lot of social studies, the kids have to be looking and discovering and discussing what they see. And it's, for me, was even helpful because I taught kinder in grade 1. They may not be able to read a complex text, but they sure can look at a picture and tell you what they notice, what they wonder, and then you can embed some teaching within that. So this is visual literacy, the image collections. This is the social studies images collections. So this is from the legacy curriculum, and they will say what grades they are. It may not match which grades it is, but you can see. I'm just going to go to Alberta Images. And there's 20 images of different spots in Alberta. So actually there's more. There's 114.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at images, and I know that I was speaking with Angela, one thing that I have done often is when we're beginning an investigation into what is an area in Canada, that's grade 1, 2, and 3, and Alberta, I'll just have images like this posted around the room.
Yeah.
And that's where we start our discovery. What do you notice, or how are you comparing and contrasting? So these images are a valuable tool. Yeah, it's from the legacy curriculum, and you can see that there's quite a few different things. They've got all kinds of images. So another bookmark or whatnot. So anyways, So that's the image collection from Learn Alberta. I hope they don't get rid of it, but the next piece we'll talk about is United Library Services. If you have a librarian in your school, if you're lucky enough to have a librarian, I know a lot of schools are struggling with that right now, is looking at the United Library Services. And they have book bundles you can purchase. So Calgary Catholic has been working very hard with United Library Services to have a book bundles draft. I know that like the United Library Services came out with a science book bundle last year to support the new curriculum for K-3 science, and I believe 4-6 is coming out. There's a pilot site resource list we'll look at, and then I'll just take you to the website where you can sign up as a teacher and you can search out books yourself if you don't have access to pieces.
I'm just going to stop you for a second.
Yeah.
Couple of comments in the chat. One of the things that I would highly, 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 highly recommend is if there are resources that you've used before that you know totally align with the curriculum, the social studies curriculum, for sure. Like there, no one is saying throw out everything that you have had or that you're aware of. That's good teaching. That's good planning to be using things that you know will work and that you can use again. I also want to just mention here too, somebody is asking, Michelle is asking about presentation. You will be emailed the PDF of our presentation, and the links will take you, they should be live in the PowerPoint that you get. So it'll take you to anything that we are clicking and showing you today. And you will also get the recording. So the other question we have here is, can teachers from other provinces access? I believe so. Like if you can log into the website, even if you can't, there will be things on the new Learn Alberta that you wouldn't necessarily have to log in for to access. And if you are attending here to this session, you will be, whether you're from another province or not, be emailed our recording and the PowerPoint with the links that you can access the documents. So I hope that answers those questions.
At the end of our presentation, there's also a toolkit that's been built. And everything
Yes.
in this presentation today is in the toolkit as well. So there's multiple places you'll be able to get them.
Right.
So
And we have an example of it, but I see someone has attended sessions and hasn't received anything yet. Colin
one
from
went out
Vermilion.
today.
Yeah, Colin from Vermilion was saying he just got his first one yesterday. So be patient. I believe things will come. And the slide decks, once you get it, make a copy of it so that it lasts you for, you don't have to worry about it disappearing on you. Okay.
Yeah. I got an email from the Edmonton Regional Office from APLC with the slideshow and the resources that Angela and I shared out yesterday. So it has come to people. If they were signed up for yesterday, they'll be coming today. I don't know. I'm not in the ATA anymore because I'm retired. So the ATA library stuff should work. When you get the resources, I would just try it and see, because I'm pretty sure I can get into some of those links. I can backtrack even.
I'm thinking that because I've gotten in without logging in. So like this ATA library, I mean, I don't think it's locked down to just members.
I don't think so. Because
Yeah, it
if I
looks like
click
you're
on
getting
here,
in.
yeah, I'm getting in.
Yeah,
And I'm not ATA anymore. So I
yeah.
do believe that a lot of those are live links.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so back to where are the resources? This is again, the Calgary Catholic Unite, and they've been working quite intensely with United Library Services to provide the book bundles draft. I'm just going to close multiple windows and just looking. So they've got learning outcome, examining places and communities, and they have some of the resources here. There will be more. And Angela has curated an amazing list of books as well. So there's just some different books in here. And that might be if you have some budget in your library funding, or There might be money coming for social studies. I can't speak to that, but there's just a bunch of different book titles that might be available. The pilot resource list is something that they shared with me the other day. I mean, last year, when I was asking them if they had curated anything. And so this is linked in there. There are tons of books here.
Mhm.
So it'll just give you information and it'll take you to a link, and it doesn't really take you anywhere. But it's more information on book bundles and things you might have. So you might see something like this one here. I know I've seen this book in multiple libraries. And A is for Alberta. That's a perfect fit for grade 3 when we're looking at regions in Alberta and whatnot. So, and then this is their website. And then I just registered. So if you click on that, it'll just take you to a link of registering. And if you submit it, they'll approve it, and you'll be able to search for books yourself as well if you need that support. And here's some of our books that we kind of use all the time. I don't know, Angela, if you want to talk about your books quickly, and then I'll
Sure.
just chat
Yeah.
about mine.
Yeah, so All Are Welcome is a really, especially when we're talking about diversity, and I believe that term, that concept diversity is pretty much threaded throughout most of the curriculum, whether it's kindergarten all the way up to, and this is a very simple book. So the grade 4, 5, 6 kids may not be, that engaged with it, but it's got a very good message about no matter what color you are, no matter what background, no matter what country you came from, if you're with us, you're welcome kind of thing. So it's a really nice little book that sort of gives you that or helps you to share with your students that sense of community and belonging. And again, belonging is also a concept that is in, especially in the K1, 2, 3. So that book really ties into, helping kids understand what belonging is all about. Carson Crosses Canada and the Canada My Home, those two books I just ordered, and they are especially, again, in the younger grades. However, I would even refer to, if you've got kids moving in, English as a second language students who may not be familiar with, the regions of Canada and the different parts, both of them, Canada My Home is very, very simple. It's written in a poetic type of form, but it talks about the different provinces and the territories. And Carson Crosses Canada is where Grandma and her little puppy dog, Carson is the puppy dog, they're traveling across Canada. And they are, again, it's a really good book to kind of talk about the different, especially like features. If we're talking about, if you were in our session yesterday, we were using specific examples of, natural and created features in Canada. This book looks at both of those things, some of those highlights that if you were driving across Canada that you might see. And the last book that I have listed there is Oasis and the World Famous Bannock. And again, this is a really cute little book that sort of, again, talks about, some of those specific things that celebrates. And again, it's a Cree themed book, but it talks about some of those traditional Indigenous methods of storytelling, which again, if you look at the curriculum, there are quite a few references to, how the First Nations were the first peoples on the land. And this just sort of gives you a little bit of a story of some of those things that many of them have carried on, but some of the ways of being before perhaps colonization. So again, they're like books that will help you introduce topics and themes and concepts. And being somebody who is really always looking at ways in engaging students, these are really awesome ways of, reading aloud to the students, discussing while you are reading, and actually covering quite a few of those concepts that are listed in the curriculum.
Thank you. And again, some of mine, Fry Bread is one of my favorite, and it talks about what fry bread is and how it represents culture. So it's a beautiful book. I Call My Hand Gentle is one that I've used multiple times with kindergarten, grade 1, grade 2, and thinking of the curriculum in kindergarten especially, citizenship in grade 1 as well as belonging in a group. So I always, if I was to be back in the classroom, I probably would start with the citizenship as my curricular go-to because I'm building routines and procedures and everything. And this is just a resource that talks about I Call My Hand Gentle, and I think there is a preview. Maybe there's not. No. Anyways, it just talks about, I have to go back to the main slideshow. It just talks about what my hand can do and what I will not let it do. And so for boundaries, I remember the first time I used it, I had a little tough child, and his go-to was to punch someone whenever he didn't get his own way. But after we read that book, I Call My Hand Gentle, it was amazing to see how he connected with that book and realized that that wasn't the way he was going to get things done because it just didn't work. So that's a beautiful storybook that just talks about it. This one is All the Places to Love. Again, it's one of my most favorite books. I don't know if you can see it. If I hold it far back enough. When I used to read it, I could not get past like the third page and I'd be in tears. And my students would say, Miss Bouvier, are you going to cry again today when you read to us? And I'm like, well, some books move me a little more than others. But it just talks about when I was born and everybody in the family. So I've used this book from K to 6. And every time I read the book, the kids are just loving it. I've used this book as a mentor text when we used to be studying the community, and I've had grade 5 students mimic the way that Patricia McLaughlin of All the Places to Love, and they would just write different places of their family. So it was a mentor text and just pulling it into social studies. Whoever You Are by Mem Fox is another book that just says, whoever you are, you have all these things, but guess what? We all need the same things. And then my last one is I'm just going to take us on a little walk through Voices in the Park. I did find this PDF. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to have it. So as soon as I'm done this, I'm going to have to unlink it. But if you Google Voices in the Park, you will have access to this. But what I like about this book is it's one story. Just got to download for a second. It's one story told by 4 perspectives. So they have the first voice, second voice, third voice. And the first one is the nanny. So it's a very uptight British kind of thing. He's from Britain. So it's just a language in here, and it tells one story from perspective. See the frightful types of dogs in the park these days. And then I saw him talking to a very rough looking child. So then the rough looking child will speak. And then there's another gentleman on a bench. So it's the second voice is this guy. It's just an excellent resource to introduce perspectives. I think kinder, maybe later in the year, but to introduce perspectives from in social studies, that it might be one story, but we all have a different voice. So leading into our mentor texts and resource sets.
So,
So Angela,
normally, and if you're familiar with the term mentor texts, we use that in English language arts for modeling great writing or author's voice, or, themes that are related to what we want our students to do in English language arts. However, I wanted to sort of keep that term, the mentor text, and pull together sort of in the same spirit of what a mentor text does, but in light of social studies, because we can, of course, connect dots, which you'll see more of later with Petronella, but also it really assists us in teaching those specific social studies curriculum. Many books out there have those themes that make it easier for us and for our students, for us to teach and for our students to grasp, right? If they can look at, and again, Petronella and I, we were talking about how, research says that over 80% of the students in our classroom are visual learners, right? And so again, the pictures, the listening to the story, the emotions, the feelings, those kinds of things that kind of go along with maybe some of the concepts that we want to teach in social studies can be introduced and can be discussed, can be built upon by just finding the right kind of book. The other thing is too, that there are so many picture books out there of places in Alberta. And again, similar to the website that Petronella showed us through the ATA library, of all those visuals, right, that you could flash up on your smartboard or print off and have on a special Alberta bulletin board, where you're coming back all the time to talk about some of those things that, you know, we will be covering in the social studies curriculum. So in the next 3 slides, I just wanted to kind of show you that with the use of a mentor text, how you can introduce and how you can start by, oh, can you go back to, sorry, go back to the last one there.
Sorry. Too
Sorry.
fast.
That's okay. So, for example, the Alberta Badlands, like our learning outcome in grade 3 is students investigate natural and created features of Alberta. So the Alberta Badlands is an excellent visual, excellent picture book that will introduce some of those natural features in Alberta without having to start off the lesson by saying, okay, kids, today we're going to talk about natural and created features. Natural features are blah, blah, blah. Well, let's show them the pictures in the Alberta Badland book and see if the students can come up with their own definition of what a natural feature might be in Alberta. Okay, now we can go to the next slide. We all belong, very similar to we are all welcome. But in grade 1, if we look at example in grade 1, we're under the organizing idea of citizenship. We have students examine how belonging, so here's that LO where we're talking about belonging, is supported within groups and communities. Well, right there, all by itself, that learning outcome is making me think about how I can create a sense of belonging and support within my classroom as a community. So, you know, the key concept is and can be introduced through this little read aloud about how we all belong. And it can be read aloud. It can be used as a think aloud. Again, you know, things, sort of a concept or a strategy that we use in English language arts that we can definitely use in social studies. The synopsis of this book states that by recognizing the differences in each of us, cultures, races, because we know in the social studies curriculum, we're going to be looking at Francophone culture, we're going to be looking at the Indigenous culture, we're going to be looking at immigrants, and many of those concepts and those terms. And this book is a really nice way of sort of introducing to students about how we can appreciate those differences and how they, in a community like our classroom, would still belong. So it's engaging. It's not a sit and get, it's a let's interact with it. And how can we now build on this book, which just reading it alone is already targeting your learning outcome. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And then, of course, the little robot books. I'm sure many of you probably have some of these in your classrooms. So in grade 2, again, under citizenship, students are learn competencies for democratic discussion and decision-making. And within that learning outcome, there are, in the knowledge piece, we have to teach the kids about facts and opinions. And so this little book, again, is a really cute example of how a robot would learn the difference between facts and opinions. And so again, here we are using something that's engaging to students. We're not, you know, basically giving them the definitions of a fact. We're not giving them the definition of an opinion, but we're reading a book to them to have them help generate and be engaged in determining, okay, what is a fact, what's an opinion, what's the difference, and get them engaged and thinking about what those differences are. So those 3 books, I gave you 3 examples of how just even using a read aloud or a picture book, you're already targeting those learning outcomes that need to be mastered and learned by the end of the year.
This is the Track Pack, Alberta Public Libraries.
I should back up for a second. Okay. One of the things too, I went through the mentor texts and resources, and we didn't actually, I was thinking about that. We might come to it, but you will have access to links to for each grade where I've pulled together, and these are live documents. So when you access it, say, you know, next month or whatever, we are going to be constantly adding, as I come across new texts or new books are published or whatever, where Petronella and I are constantly adding to the resources that we've been collecting. And so the same thing with the mentor texts and the resources. So these I've pulled from what we've collected so far, and you will have access to a link that will take you to where these are all pulled together, and you can again, use them as suggestions to ways of addressing pieces of the curriculum. Okay, sorry, Petronella, go on.
No worries, go on. That's good. This is the track pack. So I didn't have a login, but I will log in. I created one the other day. Our local library has free memberships. I'm not sure if everyone does. But if you go in and you look here and you go to, come on, where is search? Okay. Ah, there we go. Keyword. And the other day, I just searched out regions of Canada. So this is all the public libraries in Alberta have a lot of books. And so what you can do is you can look through, and I was like, oh, I should have used this when I was searching out stuff for the mentor text, but here's a lot of them, and a lot of them are nonfiction, which is wonderful. And so what you can do then is you can request it. It'll say where it is. So it'll tell you where in the province it is. And they'll say Beaumont and wherever it is, but you can place your request and you can build a list and you can select your pickup library, whatever is close to you. We're lucky in our community that they will deliver to us. That's not the case everywhere, but if you can make it to your library to do that, I'm going to log out. But that's one resource. If you don't have access to books, it's been very helpful to a lot of my colleagues. Like I said, they just get a bin of 50 books. And some of them get that many. They have them for 6 weeks, or you can request an extension. Maybe it's 3 weeks, and then you get the 6 weeks, and you've got it covered for your unit. We're going to go very briefly. I see it's 10 to 10, but we're going to go through some professional resources. So this is how to support yourself in understanding how we can teach social studies and how it's not the same as teaching literacy, perhaps in language arts or math or social. So the first resource Angela will speak to for a moment is the Anthology of Social Studies, and we'll go through these ones quickly.
Yeah, so the Anthology of Social Studies is a really excellent. You can get one for elementary, and of course the one for secondary. But the one we're looking at is the elementary version of the anthology. And this book is really excellent because it gives you strategies and it gives you different issues that you can look at. That again, as I'm going through the book, it really does give you some really interesting and engaging ways that you can have kids, for example, start thinking historically, where you're looking at different strategies such as, and they do have some like thinking strategies in there where perhaps, again, vignette of a teacher sitting and defining things for the students, and then ways that you can maybe change the way you're actually teaching, where you're teaching kids how to be investigative, how we are learning and thinking within and outside the disciplines. And again, it really is all about the engagement piece, really all about how we can get students interested, how we can get them to be critical thinkers. And they've got some very easy to understand strategies that can be used. So now, of course, this book is written in a sense that it doesn't actually tie the curricular outcomes to these strategies, but from using it myself in some of the workshops that I've been giving on teaching how to help teachers with teaching the social studies curriculum, there is just so many ideas that I've gotten from this book on how I can bring the social studies curriculum to life. And so highly recommend. It's not a cheap book, but it's a book that, you know, if I would have had this, like, you know, when I was teaching social studies, I think I would have loved social studies as much as I do now, more so than when I was trying to plow my way through some of the concepts in the old curriculum with students, and just really, really finding that, you know, if I was in a classroom, these would be things that I think I would really like to work through with students. So that's just a really quick recap. But again, tons of ideas and ways to think about how you might want to teach the social studies curriculum.
Thank you. A book that I have purchased, which is one, if you're keener like me to purchase, but don't just go and buy this tomorrow, but it's Thinking Like a Historian, by Nikki Mundell and Bobby Malone. And I think what grabbed me was the questions. Thinking like a historian, cause and effect, changing continuity, turning points, using the past and through their eyes. And it speaks to some of those pieces. And a framework for teaching. Again, it's just like, why does history matter? I think the big thing that resonated with me was reading about how history is cyclical. So things change in history. So in the early 1900s and into the 1940s, people were worried about peace because we had had world wars, and you saw the Cold War and stuff. And as that settled out, they started talking about equity and diversity, and how that was very important. And now we're kind of almost back to some of the world, like making our world safe again. There's so many things going on and stuff. So it's that cyclical piece of history. And then just thinking like, what does it mean to think like a historian? Teaching historical literacy and some of the resources. So just a quick snapshot. For me, I'm always trying to think of how can I think historically from the perspective that I was raised in, you know, as a first generation child of first generation immigrants from the Netherlands kind of thing. I have a perspective, but I need to see other perspectives. This Using Inquiry is an ebook, and it's quite long. It's 400 pages, but it's free. Again, so it's similar to the book Angela referred to, except the one Angela referred to, the anthology, is a Canadian resource. This is an American resource, but it is from the National Council of Social Studies perspectives. And we're going to look at how do we teach elementary students think like historians briefly. Chapter 4. If you're working in grades 3, 4, 5, and 6, the one piece I just want to reference quickly is it talks to you about historical thinking, like where's the source? What was the context? Corroboration. What do other documents say? Do they agree? If they do, if they don't, like why or why not? And then some of the close reading. And so this chapter just goes through the reference that they have is from Stanford University. I'm just going to scroll through. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy, but they have some nice posters as well. So before children read a document, ask yourself, and we're teaching them, especially in grade 5, they start talking about primary and secondary sources, and students have to curate their own lists before you read it. Who wrote this? What's a perspective? Why was it written? Kind of thing. And it goes through all of those. So it's another teacher resource. Another valuable piece is the Historica Canada Education Portal. And you can see on the tab here, over 300 learning tools. And you can see they've just got tons of stuff. There's all kinds of things that we can look at. This is just, you've got the learning tools, and there's also collections. So if you're looking for certain collections, they've got a bunch of different collections as well. So Historica Canada has been one that I've used to support a lot of teachers, especially if we're teaching about, it was grade 7 and grade 8, but that's kind of been bumped down now to grade 5 and whatnot, and grade 4. And then this one here, I found very helpful. It's a Canadian Encyclopedia, TCT Tips, a guide to essay writing. So there's some tips for you as a teacher, research tips, getting started, bibliography, bibliographic entries, sorry. And then this one here, this is how I found it initially, was volume 5, A Teacher's Guide to Historical Inquiry. So if you're doing inquiry in your classroom, this guide here kind of walks you through. You have to download it, but it just talks about what is inquiry and how do we teach children about that. And just one cautionary tale about inquiry is a lot of the inquiry that we're teaching in social studies, it's got to be the I do, you do, we do. We can't just give resources to children and it's a free for all, because they're not going to know what they need to have that. So when I was teaching, one of the rules in my class was before the children did any work, I had to model what would happen in the classroom that day and just do a snippet of, this is what we're doing today. And then either we did it together if it was new, or they would then see what I did and then they did similar things on their own or with small groups and worked from that. So we have mapping resources. So as much as we could, Angela and I in the spreadsheet we'll be sharing with you shortly, and this is a snippet from it, we have tried to curate free stuff. We don't want you spending your money on things. We want to see if there's the free stuff out there, because I hate spending money on anything but picture books and reference books. So I don't buy units, I don't buy stuff like that. I build from there. But this is one page from our spreadsheet, and Angela will speak to this because she had built this with some of the districts she was working with.
So one of the things that I've been finding as we are working through the social studies curriculum is I want to, and especially working with younger children, I'm always in the back of my mind wanting them to be able to kind of see, like, you know, as best they can and developmentally, where are we? Where is this? What does it look like? And so one of the things that, and I've, you know, been chatting with people in my zone, is how, you know, if you build a bulletin board of Canada, so in the older grades, you're going to be looking at, you know, different regions of Canada, but even of Alberta, right? You know, where can I get a map that I might be able to put up on my wall? And then I'm constantly referring to it. I'm referring to the landmarks. I'm referring to, and we're manipulating the images that maybe we are putting up on the map. So if we're talking about the Rocky Mountains as a natural feature, I'm going to find a picture of a picture of the Rocky Mountains, and I maybe will like pin it to my map on the wall. So went through looking for all kinds of different maps that you can get for free, that you can order, that you can download. And we just started making this collection of Alberta maps, Canadian maps, even came across some puzzles and different types of activities that we might think that smaller children might, maybe even older children, might enjoy manipulating the maps in some way, whether it's through a puzzle, whether it's through blocks or whatever. But again, that whole idea of making it visual, making it come to life. We might not be able to take them to, say, for example, the Badlands, but I can show them where we are on the map and where the Badlands are on the map. So that's, and again, you know, this document that Petronella is showing you, as we come across more and different types of maps, and other resources, we are constantly adding to this, because, you know, there are so many resources out there for us to like, you know, find and use, and you don't have to pay for some of them. So
No.
that's
So the way that
that's
this, yeah, and the way that we built this was, this is the name of the resource, type of resource, who provided it, the description, and then the blue link is hyperlinked. So if
Yeah.
you Google it, if you click on it, it will take you right there. So there's just some interesting ones. This one, Alberta's region, zooming in, is an excellent resource because it's a kid that takes you on a virtual field trip to the regions. So
Yeah.
there is quite a few things, and you can see that along the bottom. This is the spreadsheet we'll share with you shortly, and we'll just go through some of those pieces. So we've got the maps, and then there we are. So this is the social studies curriculum resource spreadsheet. And at first glance, it's kind of overwhelming. but we wanted to provide you as many things and resources as you could. So some of these professional documents have to be purchased. So the Anthology of Social Studies Angela spoke to, that's that resource. And there's just different resources here. The TC2 website, some districts have access to it, and I'm just going to show you quickly. It's got some beautiful social studies resources, but not all districts have purchased that. Keep an eye in your classroom, in your schools. Sorry, a lot of schools had purchased these whole series on tools for critical inquiry. There's some in some schools in those corners no one ever looks in. There are some of those. I've seen multiple copies in schools. So this is just the professional resources page. And there's just different ones. There's just random ones you find, and that's what you get when you Google things, is Alberta roadside attractions from albertamamas.com. And it talks about all different road attractions. So if you're looking at pieces in Alberta, they've got a map, and it's live. So if I click here, I don't know where I'm going. I'm going to Hugh Hendon kind of thing. So it's got a live map. It's got Rainbow Lake has their thing, all these pieces. So it's landmarks, and that ties into grade 2 or grade 3 or grade 1 curriculum.
Grade 1, grade 2.
It's one of them where it talks about landmarks in communities. So there's 90 of them that you could probably share with the kids, and they could figure out a few. So there's a lot of pieces here for grade 5 and 6 about source materials and how to teach children how to wade through source materials. Yeah, there's quite a few different ones there. Again, this is the maps page that Angela had shared. And then what we've done is we've organized things through time and place, systems, and citizenship. And so what we've done is we have the first piece are the mentor texts organized by OI and LO. I'll get to them in a second, and we'll just briefly look. It is 10:06. We have about 3 more minutes to get through. You can see we have online resources. All those ATA library guys I referenced are all here. Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. The websites, there's a bunch of different websites. There's the image collection I was talking about before. Come on, get out of the way. Inside Education has the mining poster. That's a beautiful resource for grades 2, 3, and 4. When we're talking about resources, there's just tons of different things we've found. You see a lot of grade 5. I built a draft unit for grade 5 where we're talking about history and stuff like that. So I built the unit and then I just threw it in there. Sorry, this thing is playing around. And then I found a bunch of resources for some of our Indigenous studies. And then YouTube social media. There's a bunch of links here on some of those pieces where you can actually click on it, and there's a YouTube link. And yeah, so that's kind of how it's set up on each page. And then I put in a piece here because in grade 5 and on, and even in grade 4, for me to know what primary and secondary sources are, when I started the social studies, I kind of knew what they were, but I couldn't articulate it. So this has really helped me understand what are primary and secondary sources and what's credible information. I like this CRAP test. It talks about what currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose, learning how to spot fake news kind of thing. So it's important for us as teachers to be aware of how to do that as well. If we're going to share source materials, we got to know if they're legit or not.
Petronella, do you ever come across a map on the political regions? That's a
I
question.
think there was once, I think there's one there, but I don't know.
See, and the thing too is if we don't have something in there right now, this is again a document that as long as we're working with APLC, we're going to be adding stuff as we come across because we will be we're still going through the curriculum, and we will be focusing probably more so on 4, 5, 6 this coming year, because this year it's K-3 that is mandatory for implementation and 4, 5, 6 is optional. And so like Petronella has been really trying to put in as much as she can in regards to, because she built a grade 5 unit, but we will be focusing on some of those other areas, like more so this year. So once you get the link, just keep looking.
And what we've suggested is bookmark it to your bookmarks bar. So you can see here that I've got this here. If I star it and I add it to my bookmarks bar, it might show up down here. So it's there, and and then it'll show up. This is where it kind of ended up there, social studies curriculum resources. If you bookmark it, it's always there. Don't make a copy because it's going to change. Like, make a copy if you desire, but it's going to be updated all the time. So again, looking at systems. And I find picture books, especially for grades K1, 2, for some of the systems, and citizenship are probably a better reference than some of the websites and whatnot. So looking at systems, and then finally looking at citizenship. So we'll look at the mentor text sets right away here. There's my alarm for 10:10 to make sure we wrap things up so you can do the survey as well. So there's just a bunch of different websites. So the last thing we want to take you to is we'll just show you what one of these unit resources looks like. Oh, what? My file is in the... Okay, so sorry, we're going to go to another one. I'm not sure why that link doesn't work. There's a grade 1 one. So I'll update that link. I think what we did is we had to move things to our front-facing document. So I'm going to have to update all these lists. But I think I can take it out of the trash. This is the same one, but we had to move documents. So you can see that time and place is here. There's just
and we tried to organize it in such a way that it's here's the learning outcome I need to teach. Okay, what are some books that I can maybe use? So we've kind of organized it in that way. And again,
yes.
Not all the images are there, but if you look below too, it might of the image, it also will tell you where you can purchase it or find it.
Yes, we've tried to include some of those pieces in some of these as well. So there's some pieces there. So what we will do though is I'll make sure the links are the same from the front facing APLC folders, and I will update that. I have some homework to do right after this session. And the last piece we'll look at, we have like 1 or 2 minutes. This is the
toolkit that everyone will have access to. Yeah.
Everyone will have access to that as well. And everything we've talked about today, the unit planning we did yesterday, but all the resources are here as well.
Click on one of the mentor texts and just see if it opens up from there.
Oh, golly. Yeah, so I have to update mine. So this is the proper one. The spreadsheet is a little bit different. I did the spreadsheets a while ago and it's been summer. My apologies. So there's the updated ones, and I'll make sure that these are the links that are in the slideshow. So if I want to, Angela, are you in the slideshow at all?
Yeah.
Can you copy that link and put it into the chat so people have time to do the survey, please? We messed up on that yesterday. If you wouldn't mind just either taking a shot of this and just watch the chat. Yeah, just watch the chat for the survey link. If you could please fill it out, because it sure helps us to organize and reflect upon what we've done and how we can better suit you. So there it is. It's in the chat, if you wouldn't mind doing it. And yeah, keep your eyes on these resources because they're going to be updated all the time. Our emails are at the bottom here. If you need any assistance or you've come up with an amazing list of stuff that's not there, you just fire it off and we'll make sure it gets organized as well. Thank you for taking your time today on coming on a day off to listen to some of the resources.
While we still have everybody for just one quick question for you, Petronella. Any tips on requesting books from the ATA library? I've
just requested them and signed them out. I forgot to send one back one time and they gave me grief, but anyways, yeah, if you know they're in the library, just put in a request and they're really good about sending them to you.
Thank you very much for, barcode. Do you need that? Let me just see if I see somebody is requesting the,
I have to go up again. Here it
Yeah.
is. Control C. There you go. But no, thank you for taking time.
you,
If there's
everyone.
anybody that has questions, want to chat for a few minutes, please feel free to unmic or put a question in the chat and we can do that with you as well. I will stop the recording right now though. But thank you for your time and it's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for attending.